Welcome everyone to another episode of Dardashe, where we feature amazing and brilliant Palestinians and talk about their lives and the work that they do. Today, I'm joined with Dr. Adila Laidi-Hanieh, the director of the Palestinian Museum. Dr. Adila, it's lovely to have you.
Thank you, likewise. I'm very happy to be here with you.
I can't wait to explore and get into all the amazing work you're doing, the museum is doing. I've been there many times and it's one of my favorite places to visit in Palestine. I don't actually live too far away. Before we get into all of that, we want to try to get to know you better. We've never had a Palestinian on the show so far that has been born in North Africa. So I think this is an interesting start. What was it like to be a Palestinian that was born in Algeria, and were you raised in Algeria as well?
Yes, I lived in Algeria. I was raised in Algeria in my early childhood, but because of my father's job, we traveled a lot, and I ended up actually living in Jordan for a good while in my teenage years, and I got my tawjihi from Jordan. And then, like many people, I traveled to Europe and then to the US to study. Yes.
Cool. And so what brought you to the cultural world? I mean, what ignited that interest and passion?
The culture had it's from the home. Yani my mother is a writer, is a novelist, and so when we used to travel, we used to go to museums. We used, when you live in Jordan, people take their holidays. They go to Greece and these places. So we used to go to all the museums, the archaeological digs. It was just a normal part of life. It wasn't like something weird or imposed on us. It was just a normal part of family life. My father is a huge cinephile. He's a film noir aficionado. So we grew up also watching a lot of movies. Classical movies, not just commercial movies. So this is the atmosphere that we grew up with at home, me and my brothers. Even if my brother does not work in culture, he also reads a lot and goes to concerts and so on. So this was part of life growing up. And then, of course, I had this very important meeting when I was living in Jordan with the artist Fakhr Nisa Zaid, who was the major Turkish painter who lived basically her retirement years in the 80s. Okay, now everybody knows how old I am. In the 80s in Amman. And so I ended up being one of her kind of students, art students at home, and painting, yani. I even took part in the exhibition that she had with her older students, which was the first major abstract art exhibition ever held in Jordan. And of course, when it came time to study, like any good Arab family at that time, it was preferred that I study something else. And so I went and I studied something else, not art. But then I'm happy to have come back to the cultural field when I started working at the Khalil Sakakini Cultural Center in '96.
Yeah, I saw that. Another venue I like to go to. Painting was the medium of art you found your way to. What through your studies and eventually where did you find the most form of expression?
Actually, to be full disclosure, one of the reasons why I didn't want to study painting بعد التوجيهي was not only because I needed to make a living, but also because I realized by being near Fakhr Nisa Zaid that I didn't think I was talented enough, and I didn't think that I had the single-mindedness and the inward focus, just focus on myself and then my self-expression, and pursue it as a career. However, when I was a student in all the cities where I lived, I used to go all the time to concerts. I used to go to museums, exhibitions, all the time. This is part of what I did, read books and so on. And actually, when I was living in Paris, I had the pleasure of seeing the first screening of Michel Khalifi's Wedding in Galilee. It was a big deal the movie was shown at Cannes, and that made a huge impression on me. Buying the book before their diaspora, finding it in a random bookstore in France, in Paris. What an amazing book that is, had also major and lasting impact on me. So anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, we asked this a lot of our guests as well. When was the first time you were able to come to Palestine?
In the winter of 94 or 95, I don't remember.
Yeah, and was previously your connection with Palestine identity, was it through art or was it through other ways?
No, it was through my family. When we moved to Jordan, my parents had, this strong sense of belonging to Palestine and to Palestinian struggle, especially with the Algerian experience, very much present in our, not the Algerian experience, the Algerian War of Independence experience and immediate euphoria of post-independence and enormous pride. This was something extremely important in our home. We were very politically aware. I started reading newspapers and Le Monde actually at a very early age, and listening to the news and so on. So this was also part of our life growing up. In Jordan, my parents had very, shall we say, high-level friends in the PLO, and we used to come and visit, and if I didn't see them, I would hear about the conversations, and then of course going to school with all the, as the majority of the population, at least in my school, was originally Palestinian, and so that was a big wake up. Not wake up. I'm sorry. That was a big exposure to me and a sense of belonging, and I carried that afterwards when I traveled to Europe and to the US, as I said, to study and to work, and through the demonstrations and everything.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question, maybe that's a bit more abstract, but do you think that contemporary Palestinian culture is inextricably political? It's very hard to separate the two, or can the political and the cultural also exist outside each other?
Well, this is a very complex question, because everything we do in Palestine is informed by the colonial situation or the exile that we suffer from. And even if you're producing perfectly non-conceptual work, critics and the audience will read and will impose a public interpretation on the work which is produced, Palestinian and non-Palestinians. Yes, but this is not for me. This is not an issue that I really worry about anymore. This is when I did my PhD dissertation, when I worked on it, this was a big question for me that I tried to investigate. I tried to investigate the new forms of political mobilization in contemporary meaning 90s onwards, Palestinian culture, and I tried to investigate, the new forms of this, either the willful political mobilization by the artist, or how the work itself was emancipatory and would open up frames of perception. So to answer your question briefly, I would say yes, but I think maybe what you mean to ask is something else, which is in the 70s and the 80s, and still by some artists, the political revendication, the political claim is front and center. And even, Virginia Woolf in A Room of One's Own, she, in her advice, in writing about the feminine condition, and especially the feminine condition of writers, even Virginia Woolf, and this is, so we're talking about decades before, Mahmoud Darwish, Mahmoud Darwish in the 90s, late 80s, 90s, he had his shift, his turn. She enjoined female writers not to champion a cause in their writing, because the cause would dominate the writing. Hella, and I'm not in the business of giving descriptions. It's not my job. My job is really to understand and to support artists and find them a home and to support them. But yeah, so in the Palestinian Museum, we're not in the business of giving answers, but asking questions. So this way, I did not answer you.
That's fine. That's fine. It's part of the Dardashe. And I think it brings us beautifully to the work of the Palestinian Museum. What is the mission? What is the work that you're doing now? And I also want to hear about this exhibition that you have on.
The Palestinian Museum's mission is to produce emancipatory learning experiences on Palestine, its people, culture, and history. And by learning experiences, this term means everything can be a learning experience. So Dalal Abu Amne concert can be a learning experience. An exhibition like where I am now can be a learning experience. It's really getting people out of the rut of consuming and producing either at school or at work or in the restaurant, being engaged in the neo-capitalist economy. Here at the Palestinian Museum, it's a free space. The entrance is only Sheikh Lane, and outside, people who can't come, they can consume us for free online. So it's a free space of reflection, of introspection, and of discovery. We do this via our annual exhibition, via research grants, academic conferences, education activities for children, school children, open general interest activities for families. So that's what we do. And of course, we have our proper, real museum work to conserve and restore Palestinian material heritage. So we have a paper conservation lab, which we hope to expand into a textile conservation lab. We have a permanent collection of art, ethnographic material.
Amazing. And so is your primary audience, you would say, Palestinians in Palestine at the moment, for those who can obviously visit? And
our primary audience is the entire world. That's what we aim to reach. Here, obviously, we're in Birzeit. We're a bit we're constrained by receiving people who can come. Before the COVID, we used to have a lot of tourists who would come, and on Saturdays we used to have busloads of people from Dakhel who would come and visit us. But we do activities and workshops for schools in Lebanon, in Gaza, in Jerusalem. We have also some events that we have done in the Gulf or in Jordan. So, and we're trying to develop that more via online tours. Inshallah, we'll be able to do this in 2022. But then we have an enormous amount of content. Actually, I would say 90% of what we produce is either on YouTube or on Facebook in video content.
That's fantastic. And that's the way
in Arabic
consume things these days. Yeah.
In Arabic and in English, or subtitled in English.
Amazing. I wanted to ask you, I don't know how much you directly engage with young people, young Palestinians, and not only in the West Bank, but all over. What is the regional reactions to engaging with Palestinian culture, history? Because I find my own experience on the political side. So I'd love to hear more about kind of what your experience has been.
Well, unfortunately, I don't engage as much as I would like to, but we have two brilliant colleagues who work full-time in education and who interface with children. But, it varies because we work with government schools, public schools. So we get basically everybody inside the museum. We get schools from Bedouin areas, we get schools from inside Hebron that are surrounded by settlements, and we get schools where half the children actually are engaged, unfortunately, in child labor. So we get the gamut. We focus on the public schools, not the private schools. The public schools come by themselves. So we usually the reaction is wonder and surprise, because again, as I said, everybody is caught up in this instrumental life patterns at work or at school, or even the way people spend their leisure time. And this is mostly the case with students who have to learn everything by heart and do the homework. And here, when they come to the museum, they get a tour, they get a specialized tour for the exhibition itself. This is the primary interface for children. It's the exhibition, or we have the open days, the family open days. It's discovery. There's no right or wrong answer. There's no learning. Even the material that we give them, which we call the kids trail, it's free. They can take it for free. We give them a free lunch, literally. We give them a free lunch. And then the kids trail, which they have to fill, there's no right or wrong. And I'll just share with you something. The last museum exhibition evaluation we did for children, because we wanted you to evaluate, we always evaluate feedback. We had evaluations filled by children, by teachers, by parents, and 2 children wrote us, "Shukran inkum ihtaramtuna." Yes,
Yeah.
2 different children. And Saturday, we had our last Saturday, we had our, so I'll translate in English. Thank you for respecting us. And the other day, we had these that started here, Saturday that came. And these were the children that I told you about who work in child labor or who work in other difficult circumstances, which I will not discuss. And they were amazed, and they said that they wanted to come every day. And then actually, this is interesting for you to know, we had a problem with our staff. They could not control them. They were going everywhere, going into the offices, even though our offices are removed from the gallery space. And this shows you, the state of our children. They don't know how to behave in a big open space, how to behave physically, I mean, in a big open public space, which is not having to do with money or with school or with family private space. And so I'm so proud and I'm so happy and I'm so grateful to our supporters, to our donors, to our architects, that this space exists. This is a big, wide, horizontal, open space that provides quality content for everybody. I'm so happy that it is here for all Palestinians, because we all know that we deserve quality programming and deserve quality content about Palestine.
I was very struck by listening to you talk about the space, because I myself am not the product of the public schools in Palestine, but all my cousins are, and my aunt works with the Ministry of Education, so I'm very, very enlightened about it in a sense. And spaces for discovery, for exploration, for learning about Palestine in different ways, about identity, culture, history, and politics is absent. And those don't really exist. So it's great to hear that the Palestinian Museum is offering a space like that. And I wish the schools would also offer more of those spaces for the students.
Yes, but the schools, there's so much you can do. But I would like to say that it's not even children, it's also adults. I mean, I'm surprised, there's our newest exhibition, which I think has the most developed form of what we're trying to do at the museum in terms of flagship project, because it has new artworks, art installations, work for children, in the middle of which I'm sitting right now, and interactive multimedia stations, video material, and lots of archives. So you have knowledge and research-based information, and then aesthetic material. And so the aim is that this synthesis of the cognitive and the aesthetic has an effect, an emotional and cognitive, and on people, and changes their perceptions of themselves and of their history and of their future. But when we had a lot of open days and public events since we opened, and I was surprised. I was talking with some people whom I know casually and socially, and showing them some sections in the exhibit about trade unions in Palestine before the Nakba, economic life, businesses, factories. And I was talking to somebody who was educated and who owns a business and so on. And I thought he would know at least, and nothing. There was no knowledge. Things that for us, we museum workers, and historians take for granted, and we think that everybody knows about شركة السكب مثلا, or about the Palestinian football clubs before 1948. We think that everybody knows about that, or about Mosem and Nabi Rubin. We have 3 screens outside in the reception about the Nabi Rubin season. People don't know about this. So the museum is not only important for children, for your children, because it's good for them to learn about Palestine. It's also good for you to learn about Palestine and what Palestinians achieved in the 20s and the 30s, the 17th century, the 18th century. And of course, this information is already available in books, but we make it available in the span of 1 hour, people or less. We can go through the gallery and learn in a fun, inspiring way.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And so one of the exhibitions you have on is A People by the Sea. You want to tell us more?
A People by the Sea, بلد وحده البحر, محطات من التاريخ الفلسطيني, from 1748 to 1948. Why did we start in 1748? Come to the museum and find out, or open our website and find out.
Okay. Do you want to tell more people about it and why you chose this exhibition, why it's important?
Actually, I chose the theme of the exhibition on my first week on the job when I started working here. So this was this was 3 years ago. And because I thought that the history of the Palestinian coast has been elided, has been effaced, and completely. First of all, among Palestinians, primarily, people forget about what happened there. And also, on the other side, that area is presented as the vitrine of the startup nation, of the dynamic secular startup nation, which in fact was built on the backs of Palestinians who were killed, who were exiled, and on the remains of their homes, their villages, their factories, their businesses, their schools that were wiped clean. And so I thought it's very important for audiences in Palestine and outside Palestine to know what vibrant Palestinian society existed already from the 18th century, the incredible diversity, the ties with the outside world, and then, of course, the incredible dynamism of Palestinian society before the Nakba. And when I say Palestinian society, I actually mean Palestinian society, because Palestinian businesses and schools did not benefit from support from the British mandate or in any way, to the contrary. And of course, to also reflect and remember what happened in the Nakba. So we have a whole section about the Tantura massacre. The centerpiece of our exhibition is this amazing work about Yafa. It is a transcending experience, a transcendental experience that I don't want to describe in words. If people take the time, I think they will feel it. I think it's you go through the gamut of emotions in this exhibition: sadness, surprise, joy, discovery, inspiration. But of course, this is not our first exhibition. We had amazing blockbuster exhibitions about art. We had the largest exhibition on Palestinian art ever held anywhere in the world. We had the largest exhibition ever held anywhere in the world about Palestinian embroidery. We had 2 exhibitions on Jerusalem. We had an exhibition on Palestinian political posters. And we also have our 2 websites, Pal Archive and Pal Journeys, that are a treasure trove of information on Palestinian social history and political history. So basically, I always say that the Palestinian Museum is everything we ever dreamt of right here in Birzeit.
In Birzeit. I haven't been to the exhibition yet, but I'll be making my way as soon as possible. And I encourage everyone to really go to the exhibition, to the space. It's a beautiful space as well.
Yes.
And
for people who don't live who live outside Palestine, not to worry, they can come visit us during the Christmas vacation or the summer vacation, because we're open for a year. We're opening this exhibition for a year. And inshallah, we're trying to organize live tours of the exhibition.
Amazing. Well, it was such a pleasure to have you, learn from you. And please, everyone, do check out all the websites that Dr. supplied us with. Thank you for being with us, and I hope many more people will be able to enjoy the space.
Thank you, Salem. I enjoyed it. And please follow us on all our social media platforms.
Yes, we're going to put the social media platforms in all our links so you can easily find them for the Palestinian.
Thank you. Thank you, Salem.
Thank you.
Shukran.